No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
South Carolina as we speak. For the first time in my life, Grayson Singleton, I think, as far as I know, I've never been to this state. I have to ask my parents if we made a trip here or through here in my infant/toddler days. But for my entire sentient childhood/adolescence/adulthood, I have not yet set foot in the state of South Carolina. That changed this morning.
How do you like it?
Well, so far, can't complain. I will tell you, the colors of fall have arrived out here on the East Coast. Now, the colors of fall have not yet arrived in Oklahoma.
No, they have not, and it's still hot.
It is still hot. It was chilly when we got to the Charlotte airport this morning. We stepped outside, and there was a chill in the air, and we got in the rental car, a very beautiful blue Nissan Versa, by the way. And we get out to driving in Charlotte, and, man, the trees are all different colors. It's very picturesque. Initial impression of the Carolinas, because I guess we started out in North Carolina and we're now in South Carolina. Initial impressions, 2 thumbs up. I'm probably going to have some Bojangles by EOD. I got to see how late Bojangles is open, because that may be the late-night haunt tonight after I get done covering 5-star cornerback Josh Dobson's game for Catawba Ridge High School. So that is what I have on the docket in advance of Oklahoma, South Carolina tomorrow afternoon out here in the great state of South Carolina, Williams-Brice Stadium. I was told, I did a radio hit with Chuck Oliver earlier today, and his producer I guess spent some time working in Columbia, and he told me you're going to want to get to the stadium way early tomorrow, way early, because it's going to be chaos. It's going to be a madhouse. So, advice heeded, no doubt, to any Sooner fans that are planning on attending this game tomorrow. Just keep in mind the state fair is going on, and that coincides with this matchup between OU and South Carolina. And so that's going to make traffic all the more unbearable tomorrow. So I don't imagine there's going to be a huge contingent of Oklahoma fans that attend this game, not nearly as significant as there was, say, when, Oklahoma visited Temple earlier this year. And you got people coming in from Philly and from Pittsburgh and Boston and the DMV area and all those big population hubs within a reasonable distance. Driving distance, that is, where you can go see an Oklahoma game for probably the only time, at least unless you're willing to fly all the way to the Sooner State for a number of years. So I don't imagine there's going to be a ton of Crimson in the crowd tomorrow, but OU fans do tend to travel pretty decently regardless of the destination. So I'll be interested to see what that contingent looks like exactly. 405-651 3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. That is how you chime in throughout the show. The show is brought to you by Dorsey Jones GMC out in El Reno. If you're looking for a brand new vehicle, why not a GMC? GMC offers some of the most reliable trucks and SUVs on the market today, and Dorsey Jones can offer you phenomenal service as well, including their iconic half-price oil changes on Saturdays. So if you have some time before or after the game tomorrow, and you're watching from home back in the Sooner State, head out to El Reno, check in with Dorsey Jones, and get you a half-price oil change tomorrow. You'll save more than a few dollars in the process. Oil changes have gotten pricey here in the year of our Lord 2025. Grayson, as I was going to bed last night, I already knew what the first thing I wanted to talk about on this show was, because we talk OU football, we talk recruiting, and what goes hand in hand with recruiting, what is inseparable from the topic of recruiting. Well, it's more broadly high school football. And Bigsby went and beat Enid 92-0 last night.
Yeah.
With a running clock in a game in which their starters apparently only played one quarter.
It was 30-0 3 minutes into the game.
How?
I don't got a clue. Folk, okay, first play from scrimmage, Enid throws a pick six.
Okay.
They come back. They come back the next one. It's either the first or second play of the ensuing drive, and they throw another pick six to Braden Presley, and then you're kind of off and running from there. So about a minute and a half into the game or so, it was 14-0.
92-0 was the final. Running clock. Starters didn't play after the first quarter. That's how dominant Bigsby is. And this conversation that I want to broach here is not exclusive to Bigsby, because back in my home state of Nebraska, there's this ongoing controversy surrounding Millard South High School, which is only about 5 miles from the house that I grew up in. But Millard South has become notorious for bringing in transfers from other schools via certain means that are, I guess, in all technicality legal, but frowned upon. And so Millard South has just become an absolute dominant, like unchallengeable force in Nebraska high school football. They win every single week, 70-0, 77-0. They won 84-0 last night against North Platte. And so I think there's a lot of discourse happening on social media right now across multiple Twitterverses, I suppose, that I inhabit, where folks are talking about what can we do to balance high school football within state lines and more broadly across the country. And so my question to you, Grayson, is, do you think a 92-0 final score between Bigsby and Enid is a problem? Because there are some that would say, yes, absolutely, that's an issue. We got to do something about this one way or another. And then there are others who are just like, well, no, I mean, coach better, play better, be better if you want to compete with Bigsby.
Here's my take on this, and I wish this was 100% original, but it's not. I'm going to be completely honest on that. You have to have some sort, at least in Oklahoma. I'll limit this to Oklahoma because this is the high school scene that I cover. Number one, the OKC public schools and the Tulsa public schools have got to have their own thing. Like, they can't compete, and it's been that way for years. They've got to have their own league and whatnot. Number two, because Enid is not part of either of those two school districts, you got to have a promotion relegation type of system. Just to give the kids an opportunity to compete. You reevaluate it every 2 or 3 years, but there's no way Enid should be playing Bixby in 6A1. There's no way Enid should be in the same classification with the Norman schools, the Edmond schools, and those Tulsa suburban schools. I mean, it's just not fair. The coaches will have a hard time instilling confidence into the kids. The kids know that they're going to be overwhelmed. Somebody could get hurt. It's just a bad situation all the way around. And I think a type of promotion relegation system is something that is easiest to do around the country, where you can say, okay, these teams have been wiped out by their competition the last couple of years. They're going to go down a level, and we'll see what can happen. And then also, if there's teams on the lower level that have been wiping out the competition for years, have them advance up and see what happens. To me, that's just the most simple way to curtail this, but it is a problem, and that's the way I would go about it.
Puerto Rican Sooner says all of Enid's decent players transferred to Chisholm. Yeah, obviously it's true that Bigsby is really, really good, but it must also be the case that Enid is really, really bad.
Yes, that they are. They really are.
Holy smokes. Puerto Rican Sooner says Enid has lost every game by an average of 60-plus points. 60-plus points. Enid hasn't been anything since Austin Box, he added. Yeah, I guess Austin – well, that's not true. They had didn't they have an edge rusher a couple years back that went to Kansas State? I'm fairly certain they had a defensive end, Donovan Ryman, if memory serves me correctly. I don't think he's still at Kansas State, but he signed with Kansas State. I want to say that was the class of 2022. That's the last time I can recall a legit FBS, P4 prospect coming out of Enid. But, yes, evidently they've fallen far from the Austin Box days. No question about it. Chris in Tulsa says Bigsby did everything they could to call the dogs off.
Yep.
You can't blame second 13 players for wanting to play hard and scoring with a running clock. Yeah, absolutely not.
Oh, no.
Absolutely not. The issue is that Enid didn't have any business playing Bigsby in the first place. My Conso says, Enid sounds like the Durant Lions.
And, the whole problem with this is, Parker, is that these classifications are based upon enrollment, right? Which is how the OKC public schools get into 6A1 or 6A2 or whatever and are playing the Edmonds, the Deer Creeks, the Normans, and what have you. So there's got to be a different metric other than just pure enrollment for how we set up these classifications.
Oh, absolutely, because, and I can remember growing up playing sports in Nebraska. And by the way, there was a text that Rick in BA said, my girlfriend teaches at Lincoln Southwest in Nebraska. We've had that discussion about Millage South. Rick, do you live in BA? That's quite the long-distance relationship. Respect to you if you're making it work with a girlfriend up in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of road time to get there and back. But I can recall growing up playing sports in Nebraska. There was one school in particular. I won't name names, but there was one school that enrollment-wise was Class A, which is top level in Nebraska. It's Class A, Class B, Class C1 and C2, and then Class D1 and D2. And so there was a school that was Class A and everything because of their enrollment, but they were terrible at every single sport. Every single sport. I mean, the school I played at, we were Class B for some sports, Class C1 for others. Didn't matter. We'd blow the doors off that school whenever we played them in literally any sport because they had no athletes. That's just kind of how it was. And so are you looking at some sort of relegation system where every year you're reevaluating just the competitive balance and trying to calibrate it as best you can?
I mean, it works and I know this is a totally different world, a totally different country and whatnot, but it works in the English Premier League. The worst teams go down a division, and the best teams go up a division. And I do think that's a healthy way to maintain competition. Now, the conversation on the text line has turned to this, and I think it's a valid one to have, is instituting stricter transfer rules. And here's what I would say to that, and my thoughts are similar to what they were in college. Do you want to keep kids in bad situations with bad coaching? And sometimes incompetent administrative departments. Because some people transfer schools to get to a better situation academically for their kids, a better situation in terms of coaching, or in terms of just how the district is set up, or to get to a better area. So I think there's a lot going there to where if you institute and make it harder to transfer, you're sometimes keeping people in negative, adverse situations. That's my hesitation to that. And then you get into the conversation of school choice and all that other stuff. But just on the surface, I do like the idea of movement. And look, Bixby's one of those schools that has benefited from transfers. So has Broken Arrow, a team that I'm going to see tonight when I call the game against Norman North. So it's a double-edged sword with the transfer thing in my mind.
Santa John says, that's really sad to hear that about Enid High School football. Back in my day, the 60s, Enid was a powerhouse and Bigsby was just a pimple on the side of the road. I'm sure that's true, Santa John. Oh, poke shade. Here we go. Cody from Tulsa says Enid versus Oklahoma State would be a close game. Zinger!
This is where that's where we are.
Gator says,
I got nothing.
Sounds like Pickle Poke Pony wants to go with Brit Commie soccer rules.
Hey, man, It works. Name me a better solution right now, man. I know you're joking. I know that's tongue in cheek. I do, but name me a better solution.
941 listener. That's Sarasota, Florida, I do believe. Great. He says, do not limit transfers. Relegation is the right way. Florida does that. Do they?
Do they really?
Florida does that? Okay. Well,
That's interesting.
Yeah, it seems like the most logical way to go. And honestly, Grayson, if we want to expand this discussion to the collegiate ranks, there's probably coming a time in the not too distant future where we're going to have something resembling a relegation system, because there's going to be an increasingly wide chasm between the Power 4 schools and the Group of 5 schools. And there are always a few Group of 5 schools that are competitive on the highest level, and it revolves year in and year out. You know, Boise State had a good year last year. USF looks to have a really formidable team this year. But it feels like the structure of college football as we know it, it obviously has undergone quite a great deal of change in the last 5 years, and that you see that kind of trickling down to the high school ranks as well. I think the two kind of go hand in hand to a certain extent, especially because NIL, soon enough, is going to be legal at the high school level in all 50 states, too. It's already legal in a lot of states. It'll be legal in all of them.
That is nuts.
405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Love interacting with all of you guys via the text line every single day on the show, and we'll continue to do that as we roll along here on a Friday. Parker Thune live from the state of South Carolina. Grayson Singleton back in the Buffalo Wild Wings studios, holding it down. Much more ahead, including the latest on a brand new official visitor locked in for Oklahoma next weekend at the Ole Miss game. Keep it right here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
A true Sooner fan wouldn't be caught dead without the KREF app. Join the Army. Get the app. Tell your friends. This is the Ref, where diehard Sooner fans listen.
In the midst of this exciting football season and return of big league hoops, don't forget, it's health insurance season. November 1st through December 15th is the only time to renew or change your individual health insurance for 2026 without a qualifying event. Due to federal changes, it's more important than ever. Allison Insurance has guided thousands of Oklahomans toward the right health insurance policy. Call Allison Insurance at 745-2968 or 800-580-5587. Allison Insurance. They are the experts.
Where do Oklahoma sports fans go to watch the big game? Gridiron Sports Bar at River Spirit Casino Resort in Tulsa. With multiple viewing screens and a huge LED wall, you'll never miss a play. Enjoy bar-top gaming, Top Golf swing suites, delicious game day food and drinks, and a VIP lounge for top-tier players. Gridiron Sports Bar takes sports fans to another viewing level. Gridiron Sports Bar, Tulsa's fan favorite.
Imagine stepping into your backyard and finding the oasis you've always dreamed of. With Signature Custom Pools, dreams really do come true. Our expert team is dedicated to designing and building the perfect pool for your family, where every detail reflects our signature touch and commitment to quality. Ready to transform your backyard? Call us today for a free consultation at 405-898-9098 or visit SignatureCustomPools.com. Signature Custom Pools, where professionalism meets artistry and every project is built to the highest standards. Make your dream a reality with the Signature Touch.
Tired of feeling pressured by salespeople when shopping for auto insurance? At Right Way Insurance, there's no hard sell, just a clear, straightforward approach. We work with multiple insurance companies to give you the best options and rates with no gimmicks. You'll get the right coverage tailored to your needs, all while avoiding hidden fees and confusing policies. So if you're ready for a better experience with auto insurance, visit rightwayinsuranceok.com or call 405-607-6014 for your free quote today. Right Way Insurance, no pressure, just the right insurance for you. Hey sports fans, you cheer on your kids on the field, now give them a chance to shine on stage. At the studio of the Sooner Theater, our school year performing art classes are open for ages 3 to adult. From musical theater to acting, jazz, tap, ballet, and hip-hop, and full-scale productions where your star can perform in the spotlight. Don't sit on the sidelines. Enroll now. Visit SoonerTheater.org or call 405-321-9600. The Sooner Theater, where every season is game day for the arts.
Whether you're celebrating a special occasion, desire a great post-game, or after-work dining experience, the Ranch Steakhouse is the winning choice. At Ranch Steakhouse, we're grilling up the best USDA prime steaks in Oklahoma. Juicy, flavorful, and cooked to perfection. Pair that with an unbeatable atmosphere, a killer drink selection, and a wine list of over 400 personally curated bottles. Whether you're toasting the game or winding down after a big day, Ranch Steakhouse is where champions eat.
Hey guys, this is Lisa Towie, owner and broker of 828 Real Estate. 828 Real Estate is your premier full-service commercial and residential real estate brokerage and property management firm. With our team of real estate agents and specialized property management team, 828 is here for you in every capacity. Whether a seller or buyer, an investor or renter, please explore our website at 828re.com. 828 Real Estate, service with purpose. 405-701-8881. Call us today.
Hey, it's Chris Plank. Every weekday morning, join us for The Plank Show. Blake Gamble and myself take you through everything going on in the world of sports and the Sooner Nation. We bring you great guests, your reaction on the text line, and of course, your calls on the Riverwind Casino jackpot line. So make sure, from border to border and coast to coast, to download the new KREF app. Simply search KREF in the App Store, and you'll always be connected not only to The Plank Show, but the Ref Radio Network, the home of Sooner fans. Download the app today.
It's locked in here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton with you as always. Michael and Marlo on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439. Said, kind of off topic, but BV was at the Marlo-Washington game last night. Who were they there watching? The Washington linebacker? Well, first off, that's not off topic, Michael, because I was going to discuss that at the top of this segment anyway. But
Look
yes,
at you.
BV, Nate Dreiling, and Jay Valai, as I understand it, took the Sooner Copter last night to two different games. So first they checked in on Case Alexander, the four-star linebacker in the 2027 class at Washington High. Washington played on the road at Marlow. And then they hopped back in the chopper and headed up to Mustang, where they checked out four-star cornerback Gabriel Osborne, another big-time target for Oklahoma in the 2027 class. And if that should tell you anything, Grayson, it is that the Sooners are serious about building this in-state nucleus in the 2027 cycle. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Jim Nagy in the front office, I think they took more arrows than Brent Venables and the coaching staff in this regard. But there was a thought late spring or early summer based on how the 2026 class was unfolding, based upon the way that Oklahoma pulled away from the Mason James recruitment, kind of separated from Jaden O'Neal, et cetera. Oh, this new regime is just going to completely ignore in-state recruiting.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, you want irrefutable evidence to the contrary? Look at what's happening right now in the 2027 class in the state of Oklahoma. Cooper Hackett and Caden Penny, the top two players in the state, already locked in with the Sooners. I mean, those right now are your key offensive pieces that you're building around locally. And the Sooners would love to add a couple of defensive pieces that they can call cornerstones of this recruiting class. And as of right now, based on the rankings, Case Alexander and Gabriel Osborne are the two top defensive players in the state in the class of 27.
And Gabriel Osborne is a guy that I've seen the last 2 years, I believe, while working for this company calling games. He's a really good player. And I'll tell you what, long-armed corner, he fits the archetype that Jim Nagy has been recruiting to. And that's a guy that Drum has been very high on for a while. He's a guy that I've been very high on for a while. He's a really good player. And I think he's going to be a really good player at the next level as well. But when it comes to the in-state recruiting, yeah, but you've got to, I say this all the time, you got to make the layups, especially with the people that want to be there. And that's why it was very odd to myself and a lot of people when Oklahoma pulled off the Mason James recruitment. And that's why they took the vitriol that they took. But you see them sort of riding that ship with Alexander and with Osborne. I think they need to make a really big push for them. But also keep this in mind, too. Context matters. And the volume of OU good, SEC good talent in the state of Oklahoma is much higher in the 2027 class than it was in the 2026 class. Even though the 26 class certainly had its prospects and they had good ones, the 2027 class in the state of Oklahoma is awesome when it comes to high-level talent. So if Oklahoma doesn't do what they're doing in the 2027 class, now we've got a lot more to call into question given the availability and the depth of that talent that's in the state.
A 405 listener says, with BV attending the Washington game, when can we expect Alexander to commit to Iowa State? I will say, if you're worried about any other school in the Case Alexander recruitment, it is Iowa State because his older brother Cooper plays there right now. Now, Case, for those that aren't aware, I think most are, but for those that aren't, he's an OU legacy. His dad was Steven Alexander, played tight end at Oklahoma in the mid-'90s, played a decade in the NFL thereafter, 1998 to 2007, I do believe, were the years that he was in the league. But I feel pretty strongly that Oklahoma's going to wind up getting Case Alexander's commitment. Cooper kind of went his own way with the Iowa State commitment. That's where he felt comfortable. That's where he felt the love. That's where he felt like he could make the biggest impact. And to his credit, he has. I mean, he's seeing the field for that program as a redshirt freshman, so he's doing well. But Case, as opposed to his dad and brother, is not a tight end. Well, he does play tight end for Washington, or wide receiver more accurately, I guess. But he's going to be a linebacker at the next level, and he's going to be a dang good one. You know, I commented the other day in a conversation with a program source that I think Case Alexander is probably the best linebacker, and there might be somebody I'm looking right past, and if so, let me know. But I think Case Alexander is the best linebacker that I've seen in the state of Oklahoma in 5 years. Last guy that was as impressive to my eyes as Case Alexander is was Jake Clifton in the class of 2022, I believe. He wound up at Kansas State, and he's serving an LDS mission right now. But he played at Owasso. You remember him?
That name, no, I do not remember.
Yeah, he's a good ball player. Started for Kansas State at middle linebacker as a redshirt freshman in 2023, and then served his mission. And I think he's gonna rejoin that program coming up in 2026. But speaking of Owasso, Taj Overton off the board to Missouri.
Yep.
Fully expected, but there's a blast from the past, a guy that Oklahoma hosted on an official visit. It looks like he's going to play in the SEC, after all, after being committed to the Pokes for a little while there. But the turmoil in Stillwater reopened the door for Missouri to get involved with him, and they were able to seal the deal. So, interested to see what's going to happen with Braden Presley, because he's still nominally, verbally committed to Oklahoma State, is he not?
Yes, he is.
But he's picking up offers left and right, and has been for a while. So
yeah, I'm not surprised he's still verbally committed to Oklahoma State. I'm not. And obviously the family legacy there has a lot to do with it. But at this point, I'd kind of be surprised if he decommitted. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I will take your word for it. I will take your word for it. A 580 listener on the text line says, OU never offered the Alexander kid at Iowa State. Shame on OU. Well, it's not true. They did offer Cooper Alexander. They waited way too long to do it, though. And by the time they did, and to be honest, their recruitment of him, even after the fact, was kind of half-hearted. Iowa State had made him such a priority for such a long time that it made a lot of sense when he elected to commit to the Cyclones. GB from the 918 says, what do you think about Cord Nolan from Bigsby, the linebacker? Is he too small? He's smaller, but is he too small? No. I love Cord Nolan, man.
I do too.
Think he's going to be a stud out there in the land of the Sand Aggies in Lubbock, Texas. He is committed to Texas Tech. So I like that fit for Tech. I like him as a player, and I know he was a guy that Oklahoma toyed with offering for a while there, but they didn't see him as an ideal fit at linebacker. They would have taken him as a tight end if he were a little bit taller, but he's not. He's right about 6 feet, which is 2 inches shorter than Jaron Kanik, who is short by tight end standards, at least when you're talking SEC big boy Power 4 football. Okay, turning the page here. We've talked about Jasir Rogers a little bit throughout the week, and this is all kind of new. This is still pretty fresh because Jasir Rogers, for those that aren't familiar, 4-star wide receiver from the state of Delaware, still technically committed to Penn State. But after James Franklin's firing on Sunday, he announced that he was going to reopen his recruitment. Oklahoma was the first school, once he reopened his recruitment, that jumped all over the opportunity to take a swing at Jasir Rogers. Since picking up the Oklahoma offer on Tuesday, he has added offers from North Carolina, from Kansas State, from Indiana, Nebraska, Wake Forest, and Alabama. However, the Sooners are set to get the first crack at him because I can confirm he will be on campus next weekend for an official visit. And they love Jasir Rogers, love his athletic profile, love the fact that he is a body type at the wide receiver position that Oklahoma doesn't have any of in this current class. They've got a bunch of big-bodied receivers. They don't have one of those, 5'10", 5'11", explosive burners that you can stick at the Z in an offense like the Sooners. So they really, really like Jasir Rogers. They're going to push hard for him. I know there's a sense of confidence on the OU side about where they stand going into the visit. And so we'll see where things land. We'll see how he reacts once he gets on campus. But this is one to watch moving forward. No question about it, Grayson.
Well, it's something to watch too, and it's also something to watch because this is going to be a dogfight. You mentioned the Alabama offer, Kansas State. That's cool. Indiana is so curious to me here, Parker, because you mentioned their blue chip ratio at 8% the other day, and they're third in the country right now. Imagine if they continue on their success that they've been having, how many more blue chippers they could either flip or get in the coming years. So I'm curious to monitor Indiana's trajectory as it pertains to recruiting. But no, you're exactly right about the fit with Oklahoma, that a lot of big body receivers, they've pretty much checked off that box in the Jim Nagy archetype. Go ahead and diversify the body type and the skill set, of the position you're recruiting. So I would like the fit for Jasir Rogers with the Sooners as well.
Yeah, your comment about Indiana sounds a lot like a take that I had about Oklahoma State for years and years and years, because that was back when Mike Gundy every single year was winning 8, 9, 10, even 11 games consistently, perennially, with a program that had the lowest recruiting budget in the entire Power 4, that invested less into recruiting than anybody in the Power 4. And I was sitting there screaming, please put some effort into recruiting. If you would put some effort into recruiting, Oklahoma State could be one of those programs that we're talking about as an expanded playoff contender.
Yep.
Once we got into the 12-team years. And instead, it was just kind of the same old song. And look, it worked to an extent, but you never saw Oklahoma State able to elevate and really get over that hump and become a legitimate national championship contender beyond 2011, when obviously they had Brandon Whedon and they had that charm season that fell so short, so close, but fell just a little bit short of getting to the national championship game via that late season loss to Iowa State and Jeff Woody, who had the game-winning touchdown run.
You did have that one year where they came up short in the Big 12 championship against Baylor, where the Cowboys would have likely been in the college football playoff if not for that loss, and that opened the door for Cincinnati to be the fourth team.
Jim in Arlington says, Taj Overton snubbing OU for Missouri is a bad look and inexcusable. Jim, I'm going to be real brutally honest here for a second. Oklahoma State made a better deal to Taj Overton than the Sooners did. That's why he committed to the Pokes in the first place. And then once he was back on the market, Oklahoma didn't pursue him because they're full. They don't plan to take any more defensive tackles. And so when Mike Gundy was fired and it became apparent that Taj Overton was, it was open season on that kid again, Oklahoma wasn't one of the schools that got involved. And so it's not inexcusable by any means. When you look at Oklahoma's current defensive tackle class, 3 really, really solid players in T-Ron Richardson, Brian Harris, and Tank Carrington. 3 guys that the Oklahoma staff and front office all believe can be NFL players one day if developed properly and assuming they stay healthy and all that jazz. But, no, it's not a bad look. It's not inexcusable. It's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Okay, 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Got a bunch more texts that we haven't gotten to that I want to get to before the end of the show. So we'll address a bunch of those as we tie a bow on the week here on Locked In. Coming up next. Keep it right here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. We'll be back.
Do you eat, sleep, and breathe Sooner football? We do too. This is the Ref, home of Sooner fans.
The TSET Healthy Youth Initiative is making a difference in every corner of Oklahoma, working to prevent teen tobacco and vape use, fueling our minds and bodies through health education, and empowering the next generation of leaders. Why? Because we are the future of Oklahoma. The TSET Healthy Youth Initiative, investing in Oklahoma. Learn more at tsethealthyyouth.com. Brought to you by the Tobacco Settlement Endowment Trust.
Ready to jumpstart your future? Start training for a high-demand, high-wage career in healthcare, construction, IT, manufacturing, or STEM while you're still in high school. Moore and Norman sophomores, juniors, and seniors apply online today to attend Moore Norman Technology Center next fall. Talk to your MNTC rep at school or visit mntc.edu to learn more. Change your life, build your tomorrow, start your future now at Moore Norman Technology Center.
With OG&E's Energy Efficiency Program, we'll provide the blueprint for lowering your bill and increasing your comfort. Whether it's tuning heat and air units, caulking and weather stripping drafty doors and windows, insulating your attic, or connecting you with valuable rebates, you'll improve efficiency and save money with no out-of-pocket costs. Learn more at oge.com/efficiency. At OG&E, we energize life.
For 3 generations, the John M. Ireland and Son Funeral Home and Chapel in Moores continued to serve the community by giving back to local schools, charitable organizations, and first responders.
We provide pre-planning for funerals and cremation services at the most reasonable prices.
We are proud to be a family-owned and operated funeral home.
Award-winning funeral home year after year, our family believes in serving the people of our community.
I'm John Ireland.
And I'm Solon Daniels.
You've got our word on it.
A happy place comes in many colors. One that leaves you feeling refreshed. Something that gets you all fired up. Or gives you the space to chill. Whatever your color, bring happiness home with CertaPro Painters and make your happy place your home. CertaPro Painters. That's painting happy. Get started today at CertaPro.com. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
It's spooky season here at Riverwind Casino.
And the monster jackpots are taking over.
Experience all thrills and chills on brand new electronic games.
Celebrate in style as a VIP in a private suite in our Showplace Theater.
Game like an MVP when you play with your wild card.
Drop in every Friday in October to win your share of our $100,000 Creepin' for Cash giveaway.
So keep the good times rolling at your favorite haunt.
And we'll see you at Riverwind Casino.
This winter, hit the court and join the action. The Youth Winter Basketball League is here, open to athletes of all skill levels. Build your game, make new friends, and compete in a fun, supportive environment. With flexible registration options and volunteer coaches focused on teamwork, there's a spot for everyone, whether you're playing for fun or aiming to compete. Don't miss out on early bird pricing. Scholarships are available for Norman residents based on need. Sign up today and make this season unforgettable. Visit YFACsport.com.
Hey, Norman, are you looking for a new Kia? At Sooner Kia of Norman, you can save up to $6,000 or 0% financing on a brand new Kia. Need service? Full synthetic oil changes or alignments are just $69. November 1st, they're hosting the City of Norman Animal Welfare Mobile Pet Adoption. Stop by and meet their new GM. He might be from California, but he's all Okie. Grab a deal you cannot afford to miss. Sooner Kia, 418 North Interstate Drive in Norman. Better deals, better service, better get here now.
It's the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. You're listening to Locked In. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton. One final segment before we turn it over to Tyler and Ted to take you home on this Friday. To the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line we go, because so many folks have offered opinions, questions, feedback throughout the show. And, of course, I want to make sure you guys feel like your voices are heard. A 580 listener says, on Taj Overton, I thought there was discussion that OU would want to take a D lineman from the portal. Why not take another freshman from Soonerland than a portal that may not contribute? Portal players seem to have been disappointing. Booty, Bevel, Ott come to mind. Okay, well, there's a lot there. First off, when you're saying portal players have been disappointing and two of the three examples that you cite were quarterbacks that were never intended to see the field at the University of Oklahoma but provide depth to the room, then those probably aren't the greatest examples to be rolling out there. And I will provide you with counterexamples of portal players that have worked out for Oklahoma over the years. You remember Eric Gray? He was one of the first. C.J. Colden, McCade Metoyer, Chris Murray. More recently, a guy like Dominic Williams. If we want to keep rolling with dudes on this current team, how about Kendall Daniels, Marvin Jones Jr., Isaiah Satania, the freaking quarterback, John Mateer, Deion Burks. You can go on and on down the list. The majority of your starting offensive line right now, portal guys. Derek Simmons, Fabechi Wiwu, Jake Michaela. And so, no, portal players in general have not been disappointing. There have been a few disappointments. There have been a few cases where, okay, you just didn't get a ton of ROI. You're getting no ROI right now from Jaden Ott, no question. But to answer the original question in that text message, he asked, I thought there was discussion that OU would want to take a D lineman from the portal. Why not take another freshman from Soonerland than a portal player that may not contribute? Well, because the whole design that you have in taking a portal player is, okay, this is a guy that we believe can immediately contribute. This is a guy that we believe can add immediate value. For Oklahoma would take a defensive lineman from the transfer portal in lieu of taking a guy like Taj Overton for the same reason that they dropped Grayson Harris and Marcus Harris at the end of last cycle and reallocated those scholarship spots to guys like Isaiah Satania and Giovanni Gibson, is because, yeah, okay, there may be a talented freshman that you have all lined up and he's ready to jump on board and you can get excited about what he could be 2, 3, 4 years down the road, but there may be more of an immediate need on your roster. There may be more of a need for a guy who can come in and give you something right off the bat as opposed to somebody that's going to need a year or two to develop. And so that right there is why you look to the portal as opposed to a guy from the high school ranks. Because if you need a defensive lineman to give you rotational snaps next year, I'm sorry, it's not going to be Taj Overton. Right? Even Trent Wilson, who was a national top 100 prospect, one of the best defensive tackle signees in the entire country in this last recruiting cycle, he's not seeing the field at all for Oklahoma right now. It's not because he's a bad player. It's because he's a true freshman. And you have to keep expectations realistic for true freshmen, especially in the SEC. So that's the rationale. Hope that makes sense. The text line is currently talking about Ricky Lolohea. Yeah, okay. I have no idea. I have no idea at this point why Oklahoma took Ricky Lolohea. I have never laid eyes on Ricky Lolohea. I don't even know that he actually exists.
What?
This is becoming.
Okay, this is 4 days in a row where you have made that joke. Like, where is this dude? Is he not there?
I don't have a clue. I do not have a clue.
So he ain't at practice. He's not suited up. Like, is he just absent?
I guess. Like, if I didn't know any better, if I didn't see him listed on the roster, I would have no knowledge that someone named Ricky Lolohea exists.
This makes no sense, but okay.
I know. I need to. I keep forgetting to ask questions to people inside that program about what's going on with Ricky Lolohea and why he's nowhere to be found ever. But, yeah, that was kind of a baffling take at the time, and it's even more baffling now that you haven't even seen him in pads at the University of Oklahoma at any point, on game day or otherwise. Lane in California says, Reggie Pearson. That's a good little pull right there. Reggie Pearson, come on. He played some good snaps for Oklahoma at safety back in 2023. He also put the hurt on Dylan Gabriel in 2022 when he was at Texas Tech. I know folks remember that. Reformed Homer says, him and Tatum are at the arcade.
Jeez.
Come on now.
Damn.
Tile Center Chris says, I'm not sure Deion Burks was a win. It's fair to acknowledge that maybe Deion Burks hasn't lived up to the lofty expectations that he came with as the number one wide receiver in that portal cycle in the winter of 23 on into 24. But when Deion Burks is on the field and he's getting the ball thrown his way, he's an exciting dude with the ball in his hands. He just hasn't had the ball in his hands a ton this year, and honestly, I think a lot of that is due to the brilliance of Isaiah Satania, and he's been great for Oklahoma. He's been awesome. Love what Isaiah Satania brings to this offense, and what gets you really, really excited about that guy in particular is the knowledge that unless his NFL draft stock soars too high, he's going to be back in 2026. Jolly Boy in Amarillo says, would this program be set back further in recruiting by another subpar year, 7-5-ish, or by bringing in a whole new coaching staff at year's end? See, man, that's an interesting question.
Are you assuming that there's going to be a new coaching staff at season's end? Because that's what that question kind of sounds like.
Well, no, he's asking, which would be worse.
Oh, gotcha.
For recruiting. Which would be worse? A subpar year and the coaching staff remains the same, or you hire a whole new staff and you have to deal with the turnover, the natural turnover, the ebb and flow of decommitments and new commitments that come with that. And it's really hard to say, Jolly Boy, because every case is so unique. For instance, when Kurt Cignetti took the job at Indiana, he brought a lot of his players from James Madison with him.
Mm-hmm.
And those were guys that knew the system, and they had been coached by the same coordinators for their entire college career, and they understood what they were getting into, and they could go out and execute at a high level and operate with a ton of chemistry on the gridiron. And they could also help set the tone, help establish the culture, lay the foundation for what Cignetti wanted to build at Indiana, and you see what those results have been. But, for instance, I think maybe the sharpest contrast to that is Brent Venables when he took the OU job. Brent Venables famously promised Dabo Swinney that he was not going to bring a single player from Clemson University with him to Oklahoma, and he honored that promise. And let me tell you, folks, there's some stories that are reserved for my memoir someday of some of the players that wanted to come with Brent Venables from Clemson to Oklahoma, and he told them no because he had made a promise to Dabo Swinney. And so it really just depends on who's coming in and what they have in mind and who they already have existing relationships with, and also how your class would hold together just organically based on the relationships that have been forged between your current commits. Like, for instance, if Ben Arbuckle were to take a head coaching job at the end of the season, it could reasonably be assumed that if it's the right job, if it's the right place, if it's the right fit, a guy like Bo Bentley would have interest in following him. But Bo Bentley's also a lifelong Oklahoma fan. And so he might be one of those guys that, and it's always useful to have these guys as well, where even if you lose a coordinator, even if you lose a coach that was instrumental in their recruitment and part of the reason why they're at, or I shouldn't say at that school, but going to that school, they're going to stay loyal to the school rather than to the individual, and they're going to rally the rest of the guys to stay locked in with them. And you saw that happen when Lincoln Riley left. There were a few that dropped off from that class. But for the most part, guys like Gentry Williams, guys like Robert Spears Jennings, guys like Kobe McKenzie, even though he had that brief flirtation with Texas, like those were guys that helped keep it all together for Oklahoma and keep the majority of that 2022 class together.
On the YouTube chat, Mateer's Thumb says, nice. Yeah, exactly. Nice guys finish last, and BV is a nice guy. And while I wouldn't put it that way, that was my first thought. Is like, why would you make that like I know he's got respect for Dabo Swinney, and they have worked together. Why would you make that promise? Now, I will say, I don't know which players it was, Parker. Obviously, that's for you and your memory. But if it was defensive players, which is reasonable to assume,
it is.
Okay, there you go. It seems like that's worked out okay.
Yeah.
But I just don't, why would you make that promise? Because, like, that's part of life. Like, that's part of the circle of life.
No, it is.
In college football when it comes, respect aside, I know he respected the dude. Like, you can't run the risk of setting yourself back like that.
Yeah, and that Oklahoma defense had to take some lumps in 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about some of the guys that were playing key snaps, starting, occupying integral roles for that defense. Trey Morrison. Nobody even remembers Trey Morrison. Jeffrey Johnson. Nobody remembers that guy. Damon Harmon. I turned on UTEP Liberty last Wednesday, and Damon Harmon was playing cornerback for Liberty. I was like, wow, that's a blast from the past there. But it was not a very talented nor a very deep defense in 2022. Could that have been helped if Brent Venables had been willing to renege on that promise that he made to Dabo Swinney and take some of those ex-Clemson Tigers with him to Norman? Sure. But I don't want to speak for Brent Venables here, but I would venture to say that Brent Venables regards Dabo Swinney. I think you can infer as much if you've ever listened to his comments.
Mm-hmm.
He regards Dabo Swinney as a coach that changed his life and helped change the trajectory of his coaching career. And so he felt he owed him a debt of gratitude and felt like it was the least he could do to promise, hey, I'm not going to disadvantage you and your roster on my way out after the decade I've spent here. So, look, every case is going to be different. You know, I'm sure there are those that probably would have preferred Brent Venables to be a little bit more of a villain in that case, but that's not who he is. That's not who he's ever been.
Tile Setter Chris says integrity is why you keep that promise. I didn't question him keeping the promise. I said making the promise, just so we're clear.
Darren in Tampa points out BV almost didn't sign Kanik because of Dabo. Yeah, if you recall, the deal that Brent Venables struck with Jaren Kanik was, okay, fine, if you get Dabo's blessing, you can come here, but we're not going to announce your signing. You're not going to get a post from the OU football Twitter account. It is, for all intents and purposes, as if you're signing as a walk-on, and obviously once you show up, you'll be on scholarship and all of that. But you're not going to do this with any degree of fanfare. We're not going to blow this out of proportion. We're not going to make this a big deal. If you want to come to Oklahoma with me, you're going to do it quietly and in a business-like manner. And Jaren Kanik, the pride of Hays, Kansas, was perfectly fine with that. And so that's what happened. 405-651-3439 is how you interact with us on the show via the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Couple more before we get out of here. 5-star Randy says people forget that the money used to buy out the contract of the coach being let go and the buyout of a promising new coach would go a long way towards other things like NIL. It's got to be a last resort to do that. There's some truth to that as well. A 405 listener says it's called loyalty and respect, And the world doesn't have enough of it these days.
Hey,
ain't that the truth?
And I 100% understand. It's just an interesting point of conversation. You know what I'm saying? But I respect loyalty and respect. Absolutely.
And another 4 or 5 listener added, curious that Brent didn't have any issue with Arbuckle taking Mateer from Wazoo. Well, I mean, look, Brent Venables, I think, was going to leave that up to Ben Arbuckle and his relationship with Jake Dickert. And wasn't going to impose any sort of regulations on how Arbuckle navigated his situation as an individual with a unique circumstance of his own. Okay, folks. Tyler and Ted coming up next here on The Rush. We're done for the week here on Locked In. We'll see you on Monday. Same time, same place. This is The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Keep it here.